Good morning, everyone. Well, my last day at this spot here, we're going to be packing up soon, going over to our new spot. The new spot is something that we've just found out about. It's one of those that almost sounds too good to be true, so fingers crossed, which basically means praying to God, making sure that we are doing the right decisions and that it will be a pleasant place to stay for a little bit longer time than we're used to, which means we can do a little bit more setup. Yesterday was the hottest day so far this year, into the 80s, well into it, and we weren't properly set up for it in the afternoon. I've got tarps that we haven't put out because the weather's been nice. I don't have my air conditioning because the weather's been nice. So when we get moved, I got to go get that stuff. We have tarps, but I don't know if we have trees around us. As soon as I get set up, then we got to look at, I need to order tarp poles. The poles you put at the end of your tarp if there's no tree to tie off to. You put it in the grommet and come down vertically, and then you take your line and go down to a stake on the end. You'll see when we put it up. But we haven't been at this site before, so I don't know. We will be doing some fishing from this site. It's a private lake, and we don't need fishing licenses. So we get to see some of that. Someone commented that my son looks like me. Well, my younger son does. My older son looks like his mother. And he's too far away. Well, my younger son was far away when he was in Peru, but my older son lived for a long time in San Francisco, but it even got too bad for him. And he went to his wife's family location north of Chicago. He hasn't been here. He hasn't been back to here since he left. And we're kind of, it's one of those, we're kind of an afterthought. I always wish him something happy, whatever the holiday is, and the words I get back are, thank you, period. Maybe not even a period, but end of thought. You never know. In any case, we're going to try to get set up later today. So for today, I've talked about this briefly, but I want to kind of just make this as a focus. In the days of Noah, we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. Why is it significant? Why does Jesus use this reference? Because that's where it comes from. We'll be in Matthew 24, which is our infamous Olivet Discourse, where he's talking about the coming times. He's not talking about the rapture in most of it. And parts of it that could be the rapture are not completely the rapture. Well, there's multiple raptures, so it's certainly not the first one. And when it talks about the coming of the Lord, he's not talking about the rapture. For the rapture, he doesn't come to earth. The only time he comes to earth is his second coming. And when that happens, we won't be down here. We're coming with him to rule and reign. So let's take a look at this. What's the significance of the time of Noah and the time of Lot? Days, weeks before the destruction. That's the time frame we're in. The destruction is coming. I put my little clock up a few days ago, and it's a sign of the times. We're about ready to turn midnight. And the reason I use midnight is because that's the The countdown to the end, that's the way they use it, they reference it. It's the end of a day, the end of a season, the end of an era. It basically means that we're running out of time fast. On God's scale, we're seconds away. Now, on our scale, I don't know. And we don't know. And you're going to reference the verse that says we don't know the day or the hour, but that is not the rapture. That's the second coming. We don't know that either. Actually, on the rapture, there's very little telling us when. We know that there's a series of things that must be ready, and everything for the rapture is ready. There's some things that need to happen maybe for the second coming. We can talk about that in another video, but there's nothing for the rapture. So we're basically waiting. But we're not biding our time, I hope. We're doing what we can. We have to do what we need to please God, and He wants to save everybody. So we've got to take the message to everybody. My next video, we're going to talk about why we're not received by the majority. But for this one, we're going to stay on this. Okay, let's turn to Matthew 24:37. And I'm going to have, I need to do something to reference when I look up a verse. Because I go through this video and I put the verse numbers at the bottom. And I couldn't find one last time because I apparently just said it very quickly and I couldn't find it. It took me 3 times viewing the video, not from beginning to end, but in between. And it took me that long to find it. So I'm going to have to say verse, Matthew 24, verse 27. Got it? I don't know what I'm going to do. All right. So, Jesus talking, red letter. And here's that famous verse, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor my Father only. But as in the days of Noah, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. See, he's talking about the coming of Son of Man. That's the return. The rapture, he's not coming down here. It's a quick rescue and then back to heaven until it's time for him to come. But as in the days of before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man. His second coming, not the rapture. So we won't know the day of his second coming. He comes like a thief in the night, we're told later on. He talks about 2 men in the field. One will be taken and the other left. It's an example that some are going to already be saved, have their name in the book of life, and others won't. But everybody will have the option. At that point in time, nobody can say, I didn't know. It talks about the preaching of the gospel worldwide. It talks about the angels spreading the gospel worldwide. They will have their opportunity to say yes or no. God does not send anybody to hell. They're given the choice. Do you want heaven or hell? The standard worldly answer is, what do I want to go to heaven? All my friends are going to hell. I want to be with my friends. They will be. God lets us decide. On 42, so watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming, but know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed the house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Again, second coming, not rapture. But anybody who wants to try to predict it, it's coming at an hour you don't expect. Continuing on in 45. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler of his household, to give them food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom the master, when he comes, will find him so doing. When he comes back, he should find us, and whether it's the rapture or at a second coming, he should find us doing what he wants us to do. Will he find you doing what you're supposed to do? Assuredly, I say to you that he will make him ruler over all his goods. We are to be kings and priests. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunkards, the master of that servant will come on that day when he is not looking for him, and at that hour that he's not aware of. He's coming for everybody, but are you ready? And will cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When he comes back, his second coming, that's it. There's no more. And we're going to read this next chapter, chapter 25, for a little bit here. This is a story we're familiar with. When the kingdom of heaven shall be, then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessel with their lamps. So when someone says, are your lamps full and do you have extra oil? That's what they're talking about. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they slumbered and slept, all of them. The bridegroom is not delayed. Over this last 2,000 years, his grace is providing salvation for those that are still here. That's the only reason it's taking a while. If he could have gathered everybody in, offering them eternal life in heaven, and gathered them in 30 days, we wouldn't have had this long 2,000-year gap. And at midnight a cry was heard. Another reason for using midnight, the Bible uses it. Behold, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. They often would come in the middle of the night. It's when people would least expect him, although if you do it often enough, it's no longer least expected. Then all those virgins arose, trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, no, lest there should be not enough for us and for you. We've got enough for us, but we haven't got enough to share. That's your responsibility. But go rather to those who sell and buy for yourselves. But oops, it's midnight. Nobody's open. Wise versus foolish. We have to decide which side we're going to be on. I think pretty much everybody watching my channel is part of the wise, but just in case you're not, learn. While they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. And shut for good. In 11, afterward the other virgins came, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said to them, assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. If you're wise, you will be doing what God wants you to do. That's the simple part of it. Okay, and we talked about the days of Noah, so let's go back to Genesis 6 and see what the days of Noah were like a little bit. 6, verse 1. Again, I got to figure out a way to mark this. Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. It's always been something that's slightly controversial of who these sons of gods are, but because we're all sons of God technically, but angels, and they may not be good angels, they may be bad angels, which is the primary interpretation. Saw the daughters of men, and that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all who they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, and yet his days shall be 120 years. Now this is Noah time. In Psalms 90 we get 70 years, 70 to 80. And there were giants on the earth in those days, David and Goliath. And also afterwards, when the sons came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men. They were of old men of renown. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. Kind of like today, isn't it? And that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. All you gotta do is watch the news if you can stomach it. And the Lord was sorry that he'd made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Just talked about that. Grace first. So we know that God did this to clean up the earth. So we are descendants of Adam, the first man, the first sinner, but a very narrow range, because it has to go through Noah. And it was just him and his family, 7 people saved on the earth in an ark, a big boat, but a big, pretty well flat boat, one to ride out a large wave. And that's pretty much what happened. Now, I've talked about this before. I say that, the earth didn't look like it does now. It couldn't. A wave big enough to go over the entire earth, if it has to go over Mount Everest, would have so much power, it would destroy the ark. Anything you build, it would destroy anything. That much power crashing down from the highest mountain above sea level. That's not what happened. The earth would have been more flat, no mountains. But that's another story again. Psalm 91. Your only hope, your only way of staying through all this stuff until he comes to rescue us is to stay with him. Psalm 91, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty, and will say to the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I will trust. He is the only one to get us through this. You can't do anything. Whatever you do might work for a little while, but it won't sustain. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noontime. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only God can do that. So you want to be safe? You want to be protected? Stay close to God. Now we know about the armor of God, but the armor of God that we're supposed to be wearing is so that we can go out into battle. But you don't need the armor just to be protected. God will protect us without the armor. But you should still have the armor so that you can go out and spread the gospel. There will be people who want to kill you at that point. Social media is starting to tighten up. I'm going to continue to say that I've got backup plans for the short term, but long term, they're going to take down anything that has to do with God, not allow it, whether they arrest people and put them in jail or just plain they disappear. And we're not talking rapture disappearing. We're talking about the evil powers of this world getting rid of people that they don't like. They will stoop at nothing. Nothing will be too terrible for them to not do. But the safety of you and any other Christian would be in the Lord. So stay close. Talks about being covered by the wings. The wings have a certain range. You get outside the wings, there's no protection. Got to stay close to God for that. Okay, part of what I wanted to talk about, just as a set of numbers so we can see where we're at. We talked about the days of Noah being married and given in marriage. Well, where we are with that is there are roughly 2 million weddings a year in the United States. And the numbers are a year or two old. They don't come out with these numbers currently. So that in 2019, that's over 5,000 a day, just to put it into reasonable terms. In 2019, there were roughly 830 divorces. That's about 37%. These aren't marriage license, these are learner permits, I guess. Not the covenants that God wanted. It is sad to see what's happening. And we feel sad about it. Can you imagine how God feels? He created everybody, and people don't accept the truth. They accept a lie because we are in ourselves a lie. We are sin nature naturally. We come by it naturally. So it's easier for us to accept a lie than the truth. We have to forcibly choose the truth. If it was so easy, everybody would accept the truth and go on, and there wouldn't be anybody going to hell. But it's the opposite. Satan is pushing all of us into the lie. And we have to willfully choose to take the truth. Those that have, we have our lamps and our oil, and we'll be fine. But we have to constantly resist, because that lie is around us all the time. How many times have we heard lies about our current administration? I'm not going to go into detail so I don't get banned, but it's just constant. Every day. spite of nature, there's still the sounds of man in the distance.